I saw this really cool filter on TikTok and I decided this would be really cool to make with makeup. So follow along and I'll tell you what I did to create this look. I started out by mocking out the shape with a nude eyeliner pencil. You could also use a white or maybe even an orange here. The shape is super jagged, so you just want to focus on creating lots of peaks and pits. It doesn't have to be exact or perfect. In fact, the more asymmetrical and different it is, the better. Once I was happy with the shape, I went through with an orange eyeshadow primer and filled in all of the pumpkin areas with that primer. You can also use Halloween face paint here, liquid or cream, anything, it doesn't really matter as long as it's orange. While going through and doing this, I was just trying to stay just outside of that nude pencil line that I had created. Here I realized I forgot the nose, so I drew that on really quickly and went back to filling in with the eyeshadow primer. Once I had all of the orange areas filled in, I grabbed an orange eyeshadow and started setting the primer with the orange eyeshadow. Again, not super precise, you just have to set the primer. Adding the eyeshadow is also helping any patchiness that we see. It's creating more of a pigmented orange. You are still going to want to set this with a powder, even if you're using Halloween makeup, cream or liquid, doesn't matter. You're still going to want to set this with an eyeshadow. It's going to help with blending later. Plus, it will prevent you from rubbing your makeup off all night. Once I was set with the orange eyeshadow, I went in with a black eyeshadow around the edges. You are absolutely going to want a precision brush for this, just something really small and detailed to go through and just put a black line around that edge. I'm just placing this right on that nude line that I had created before, and then creating a little bit more sharpness at the peaks. After I laid down the black line, I went through and blended it with a dark brown all along that edge. Doing this black to brown fade out gives it that really burnt look. Just make sure you're really blending that black and brown together and then smoking out the edge. Once I was done with the dark brown, I went back through around the edges and added in a mid-tone brown, again fading those colors together and fading it out into the orange. I also went around my jaw with that mid-tone brown to give it a little bit of shading at the bottom and added some around the top of my head as well. You can always add more orange to blend out some of the edges of the brown so it becomes more faded. We just don't want any harsh lines. Once I was done with that, I started in with the black around my mouth and my eye. For this, I used a cream Halloween makeup or stage paint from Ben Nye because I wanted this to be very, very pigmented and just be completely black. For this part, I did want to be a lot more precise, so I'm using a very flat, sharp brush to go around and create all of those jagged areas, keeping them very, very sharp. And I'm staying just inside of that nude line that I had created. Here I noticed that the line around my face was just not as crisp and sharp as the line around my mouth. So I went through with that paint and sharpened up those lines where the eyeshadow was just looking a little murky. So here I went all around the eye area, again, keeping the edges super sharp and crisp. You can also add in anywhere where you see like a mistake or you want to add some more jagged edges, you can add that with the black. You want to be super gentle on your eye skin if you are using this Ben Nye stuff because it's a little bit more tacky and kind of hard to spread, and you don't want to pull on your eye skin too much. Here I am going around the nose, same thing, keeping those edges super sharp, making those little jagged marks, and if you have a nose ring, be super careful around that. Hopping over to the normal side of the face, I started out with a light orange at the inner third of my eye, then went in with the pumpkin orange, and on the outer corner, I used that mid-tone brown. I blended everything out and then went underneath of my eye with the orange and the brown, and I also went back in with just a little bit of the dark brown to smoke out the lash line. Once I was done with that, I added in a little sparkle to the inner corner. Once I cleaned up my under eye with concealer and blended that out, I took that concealer and a detail brush and went around the edge of that pumpkin again, further sharpening those lines and cleaning up any mistakes, because again, we want that to just be super crisp, clean, and jagged. Adding in this highlight also gives it a little bit more of a three-dimensional quality. So once I added the line, I just blended that out a little bit more onto my skin. Then I went in with a flat brush on my foundation to fill in the rest of my face. I used a flat brush because I needed to be a little bit more precise around the edges, and I blended out the main areas of my face with a sponge. Then I added in a very warm bronzer, it's kind of an orange color. And now for the fun part. I went through with that mid-tone brown and I went around the edges of the black. Here it's really important to just leave a little bit of space around the black to where you can still see the orange or that nude line. That way it's looking more like a shadow that still has that little bit of highlight. And then I blended it out into the orange. I had to alternate a lot between the brown and the orange here just to get a nice blend. For some parts of this, I wanted the shadow to be a little bit more precise, so I used a very small detail brush to lay down the brown, and then I would go in with a dense, round buffing brush to just buff out the edges and blend out that brown into the orange. I also used that medium brown to rough in a little bit of a cheekbone. Once I had the brown laid down everywhere I wanted it, I went back in with orange and buffed those edges out, again, using that round, dense buffing brush. While I was buffing everything out with the orange, I went over that nude line that I had left and just added orange over the top of that. I think you could just go ahead and leave that nude line if you wanted to in some spots so that it keeps that really nice highlight. Here I'm just defining that cheekbone a little bit more and blending everything out there. Once I had everything blended out, I went around my eyes with a black gel eyeliner pencil. On the black side, this is minimizing any skin showing. On the normal side, it's making it look really glam. And then, of course, I finished out the glam eye with a nice winged liner, mascara, and lashes, and then added the mascara on the black side as well. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.